were very young, fresh out of law school, just got their practising certificates and straight out and into it. Into something like working for the legal service, I think, is something to be recognised, and they turned out to be very good lawyers. And I'd trust them any day to be able to do a job and do a good job. My name's William Bates. I'm originally from Wilcannia, which is about 600 kilometres west of here. I first came involved with the legal service back in the 70s. I met a fellow by the name of Peter Tobin and Tombo Winters came to Wilcannia. I think it's probably the first court they come up there to do. And people, there's probably around 100 people or more waiting to go to court, and all of a sudden this lawyer turns up out of the blue and says, "I'm here to represent you people." Oh, geez, wow. It was good, and from there on we sort of spoke, and I met Peter and Tombo there, and they came back every month from there on to do the courts. There was Steve Gordon also. He's still in Brewarrina, one of the senior field officers that was around from day one. I then became involved as a director on the New South Wales Aboriginal Legal Service, and we sort of couldn't get on with the country, if you like, or the bush and the city, and we ended up convincing the federal government at the time to give us some financial assistance to set up a separate legal service, or a breakaway legal service, as it was called in them days. And we done the recruitment. We set up a board of directors and got the company set up and called it the Western Aboriginal Legal Service. One of the first things, of course, we had to do was do recruitment of lawyers. And Tony Parker, who's now passed on, was one of our first lawyers, and he was able to recruit another 3 lawyers who had just graduated from law school, and they came and worked for us, and straight into it, if you like. There's doing all the courts around the area from the Queensland border, if you like, to the Victorian border. And it was life on the road as such. And a lot of that time, when we could not get financial assistance, it was living out of the boot of the car, if you like, and the office is virtually the boot of the car most of the time anyway. So it's that's how it was. It was set up, sort of thing, and the dramas that we've had with the courts and the police and the magistrates, and being racist towards us. And they've always, and today still have a thing against the Aboriginal Legal Service. Why has got me beat? I mean, anyone's entitled to a lawyer, and we always seem to be there to be seen as troublemakers, and because we're there representing Aboriginal people. And it's got me beat, but they've always had something against us. We're coming along as the magistrates, some of the magistrates used to quote it and say, "Oh, come and retelling lies for your clients," or "got your lawyers telling lies for you," and things like that. And it's, it was hard enough getting around, and the miles and the long hours people had to spend, and the hundreds of people that had to be represented, and the magistrates and the police on top of it, getting stuck into us like that. It wasn't an easy life. Tony had a way of speaking. He said to us at the time, I actually said to him, "Where can we get some lawyers?" And he sat there, and he was a chain smoker, and he's there rolling a cigarette. licked the paper and rolled it up, and he said, well, I know where I can get 3 kids that's just left law school. Put the cigarette in his mouth, lit it up, and took a drawer and said, well, and the conversation started, and a little while after we had Stephen Fitzpatrick, Anna Smith and Eric Wilson. Then Stephen, of course, sadly died in a car accident just east of Wellington going to do a court. I spent about 15 years with the legal service. And then I went on my merry way and done other things, and there's a lot of lawyers and field officers that sort of come on board and has been through the system since I was on board. And one of the good things, I think, was about the purchase of this place, and I named it after Stephen Fitzpatrick, who got killed in that car crash. I'd go and ask for a court list. I was told once in Wilcannia, I'll give it to your lawyer, but I won't give it to you, you black bastard. Well, on a court list that's always put on the wall outside for public display anyway. But we had our good times. There's times when there's some decent magistrates around, they'd allow us when the courts were, the lawyers were very busy and couldn't make it. There was times when the magistrate allowed the field officers to go and do mentions and adjournments and things like that, which was good. And there's odd times when we was allowed to do a plea for minor offences, and that was when you had the cooperation of the police, the prosecutor and the magistrate. And there were some good ones and some hard ones. Court lists were very high. It'd be nothing to go along to Wilcannia and see around 100 or 150, 60 people going to court. The council subcontracted to the CDP in Wilcannia 6 months' work out of this new work opportunities. And the magistrate noticed that in that 6 months, the court lists, where he'd have around 100 people a month appearing before him for various offences. Through that 6 month period of employment, there were around 10 or less people appearing before him. And the same statistics showed up at the health service, where people were, when they were employed, they were living healthy and not getting into trouble. They can pick you up and put you in front of the court and say, you know, you're charged with such and such, and vagrancy under the old Summary Offences Act at the time. It's nothing to get a month or 3 months in jail, and you do it there in Wilcannia at the time. That the JPs would come down and sentence you to whatever, and you're in jail for whatever he gives you. There was no, people didn't know how to appeal, or you had anything to say for yourself, or I was drunk or whatever, but to invade your privacy, come into your own home and just do what they wanted, it was just not right, and I've seen them bash people, and they just got away with whatever they wanted. And when we got lawyers in, we got the lawyers in, I jumped at the chance to do something at the time. And when the lawyers come in, the lawyers are the bad ones for coming in and representing Aborigines. And it's, as I said, in a lot of cases, it's like that today. They were very young, fresh out of law school, just got their practising certificates and straight out and into it. Into something like working for the legal service, I think, is something to be recognised, and they turned out to be very good lawyers. And I'd trust them any day to be able to do a job and do a good job. And they've had, matters anywhere from minor thefts to serious assaults and malicious woundings and murders and whatever. So it's nothing, they walked into it half blindfolded, if you like, but they done the job to the best of their ability. And we were there as a field officer, always just, to do whatever we can. And most of the time we're sort of mainly looking after clients, be there to assist them to get to know the clients and what the police are like in the town and the politics of the town and whatever. It was always plenty to do and things like that. And there's times when, as I said, we had to go and with good magistrates and prosecutors, we was able to go to courts and appear for clients in minor matters. And we eventually were allowed to get court lists. I mean, the clerks of the courts, when the systems changed, there used to be a great one in Wilcannia, Darryl Miller. He's up in Coffs Harbour somewhere now, I think, but we was able to get information from the courts. They'd give you the police files you could go through, get the particulars out of the charge sheets and things like that. So things did change for the better in some places. We always had a good time, and even after the courts were finished, you'd always go sit down and over a beer, reflect on what happened today or the court before and things like that. But it was, you always sort of had this, you looked at the funny side of things, but always put the head into it and the feelings into it and get the job done. Mm. There were a heap of these Ford sedans and a big yellow coloured looking Ford sedans with a big black stripe, looked like a sport car, big black stripes right over the top, and they were nicknamed the Yellow Sharks. Look, when we didn't have money for accommodation, we threw our swags, and sometimes peoples would give us a bed or other, Ivanhoe was a description of when went out there a couple of times to do the court. There's an old disused railway carriage out beyond this old service station that no one ever used. We'd just get in there and throw our swags on the floor and camp there, get up next morning and go to someone's place and have a shower and clean up and get decorated up, as you might call it, put the neck and tie, collar and tie on and off to court. Yeah. The day after, the night before, there was going somewhere on the north coast, I think, somewhere to do court, and there was John Terry and I just can't think of the name of the fella. The field was, John gets out and he gets in the back seat with a pillar and sort of, I'll catch another few, there's a bit of a shut eye before we get to the court. Morris, anyway, the field officer got out and fueled up and he went into the servo to pay for the fuel. While he was in the servo, John Terry gets out and went to the piss house. Have a piss. Brucey Morris, I think it was. He comes back into the car and took off. Got to the court and there's people everywhere. Where's the lawyer? No John Terry. And John was back on the road doing this. But anyway, Brucey gets to the court and I said, where's the lawyer? He's scratching his head. I'm sure he jumped in the back of the car with me. Anyway, after about an hour or so, I think they, the panic button was sort of already set, and John steps out of this big truck straight into the change room, puts his suit on, and some of the things that.
That'll have to go into the field officer's manual. First, don't lose your lawyer.
Yeah, that'll be a good one, yeah. How to become a field officer.